So here's what I want to do is just before we start, I just want to ask you a couple of questions. And just so if you think about where this is right now, I want to tell you a little story first, because I've been a salon owner and salon owner, leader of the team, etc. And I want to take you back to a little story, because I can remember being behind the chair all the time. I was the owner, the leader, you know, and kind of you're stuck behind the chair because, you know, you're the major money owner. You're the money. If you're the major money winner within your organization, just type into the chat bar, type I am. I'd love to get the feedback from you, because that's exactly where I was. And I was stuck doing all of the training. So if you're doing all the training, just type in Y for yes. And in looking back, then I just remember looking back, and I loved doing all the training at the beginning, but then eventually I just got burnt out. I just felt like I was doing all the work, and I was working 24/7. I would come home at night, and I would have hardly time to spend with my family, because I was writing programs or trying to figure out what the heck I was going to do the next day in the training. So if you can relate to that, just type in I relate. Even if you're watching this on a pre-recorded one, then just type in relate, because we'll be watching these after. Now, one more quick thing is, how many of you right now notice that you have a youth that's marking this right now? There's a whole bunch of names for them, Gen Zs, etc. I call them Gen Now. They are not bad. There's nothing wrong with them. They just have different values. And I'm going to talk to you and show you a little bit about what they need and they want, and how we can use all of this information to make sure that we have a training system that's in place where they want to stay. They want to stay because they're a part of a community, etc. Okay, so if you can relate to some of what I was just talking about there, just type in I relate, because I would really love to hear from you on this right now. Now, I just want to set up 3 things with you right now. You'll be able to see this in the bar. I just want you to see what's happening right now. There's 3 rules that I have that's going on with this right now. Number 1, first rule is, how many of you have been on a training of some sort? You know, if you could just type in me, or type in I have, or even just give me thumbs up imaginary. If you've been in a training, somebody's talked to you about how to put together 6-figure training, how to do trainings or whatever, you've been part of that, just type in I have. But here's what I want you to do. My first rule that I have for you, my friends, is this. What I do not want you to say is, or even think is, I know that. Now, the main reason why I'm saying that is if you're saying, as soon as you say, I know that, your brain is going to shut off. And here's what happens, and I can only tell you from my experience, is oftentimes I would go, okay, well, I've heard this before, but I stay conscious to it. And then all of a sudden they say something that I've heard 10, 20 times before. And the one missing piece that I got clicks with me, and I go, OMG, that's the piece that I was missing. So I want you to be really cognizant. I have no idea what that word means, but I want you to be aware of if your brain starts to say, I know that, because you're going to tune out. Now, it's really easy on these webinars as well to tune out, and you'll start to look, you got emails going on, you got things going around you. Please do yourself a favor, put that stuff aside, stay totally focused on what we have to offer here. And I promise you, you're going to get some really interesting stuff that will come away from this. Now, second part of this, you see my little, that's me as a youth in my chemistry class. No, not really. But I want you to make sure in here, just to stay curious. And what I mean by that is is this part in here, is the questions. What questions? Particularly if I say something and you got a question that comes up, you know, I will be having Q&A periods as we move through it for this. If you have this, and I have a Q&A built in at the end, that's when I'll be giving you those gifts, etc. Now, the idea is I want you to stay curious. Now, if you do have a question and you type that in, all I want you to do is type in 2 question marks. Now, if you guys just two question marks, type into the chat, and then just type, you can put XXXX below that. Just the reason is, if we put 2 question marks, as the stuff comes by, flying by on our chat here, if we see 2 question marks, the team or myself will be able to see those and know they're question related. Okay. And now, third part that we have in here is that I think is really, really important in here, is that the third rule is play nice in the sandbox. Now, in this case, the sandbox is the learning environment that we're in right now. And I think sometimes because when we're on a webinar, it's really easy. I've seen people, well, they'll make a snide comment about something that somebody else said. I think that's what's really important. And whether you have a community in your salon of trainings, or whether you're doing it on here, that we make sure that we're supportive and we're always answering and working with one another in here. Okay. If everybody's is good so far, type in that you're good. Now, I brought this in. I thought this was really interesting because I think the people, from all the people that I've been have on, we've had many people in this beta test that we've done on this training program that we put out, is that we've had 50 people that have been on there from top salons. And the big thing that they talked about in there right now is that they're hiring right now are all the Gen Zs. So I really want to focus on this. This report that came out was what employees want by generation, right from the boomers on up. And then they said what they want from work. Now, if you look at me, for instance, as an owner, if you look at me, I'm a baby boomer. Yes, I have earned that gray hair. But if you look at, I'm a loyal employer, or let me go back to the traits here. I'm an optimist. I enjoy mentoring, and I have a strong work ethic. That's for all the baby boomers. And then what they want from work is a loyal employer, a hierarchical culture, the chance to mentor others, and respect. But now Gen Zs are the one that we're really dealing with a lot now. They are digitally fluent. They are practical. They flourish in diverse workforces. But here I want to check out what they want. They want a culturally competent employer, meaning that how can they work culturally, and how much culture do they put within their organization so they feel they fit and have some place to belong. They're getting competitive wages. They want mentorship. They want mentorship that they don't necessarily have to do after hours. They want to have their time after hours. I'm sure all of you have seen that. They're talking about quality of life. God forbid, after COVID and all of the things we've been through, I want a little bit more quality of life as well. And the other big thing that they want is they want stability. They want a place to stay. These are perfect people that we've always heard they float around, but these are perfect people that if we get them into a proper culture, that they will stay based on their loyalty. Now, I want to talk to you just real quickly about, if you've heard of John Maxwell's, who is what I call one of the foremost authorities on leadership, and he talked about what they call the flea syndrome that happens with leadership. And what he did, the experiment that he did, if you see the black dots that are on the bottom of this mason pier, this my absolutely phenomenal drawing skills that you see there. They all represent fleas. So much so, I'm sure you'd think that they're a lifelike, almost photographic quality of a flea. But what he put the fleas into the jar, closed the lid. The fleas jump because they want to exit and want to get out, but they kept hitting the top of the lid. So after a while, what he noticed was after 3 days, they stopped jumping and they lowered the level that they would jump to. Now, the interesting part of this, I want you guys to listen to this really closely and take a note, that not only did they stop jumping, but when they reproduced, their offspring did not jump any higher than that lid height that was imposed upon them. So I think that's a really critical part when we think about kind of the leaderships, where we came from, who we learned from, what the leadership style that came from. So we have to look at this in human growth, not fleas, but is this in relation, in a scale to what we do? So a couple questions I want you to think about in this. Just so there are things that if you want to type them in, go for it. I really love to see you guys typing in there right now, because that way, at least for me, I think that I know you like me, and maybe that helps me along. Okay, good. What I would say, the questions I would ask you is this: what is your leadership lid set to? Okay, Chris, what do you mean by that? Well, is it, and I don't mean this relative to the team. In other words, the lid is like the lid of that jar. When people are rising up, think about that lid as their goals. Are they reaching their goals? Are they relative to the goals that you're trying to help them achieve, not necessarily our goals? The difference is, think about if a stylist sees you as just making money for you as opposed to fulfilling their goals, then it just becomes about price. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a second. Second question I want you to think about. Is your lid high enough? In other words, is your leadership lid high enough? Are you playing big enough? Is the game that you're providing for them big enough so that they don't just die on the vine and want to go somewhere else or want to go on their own because we're not getting it where they are? Because I promise you, if you always have places they can go, etc., then they will want to stay and they'll stay loyal. Are you thinking expansively enough? In other words, are you serving powerfully enough to help them to set their goals, serve their goals, and also the ones and how it meets and meshes with your business? Okay, 3 powerful questions that I think that I want you to think about. The next thing is if you see this in here right now, that I want you to think about what you see. Let me just shrink that down a little bit so you can see it all the way. There it is. Now, your blank, 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 and blank is in direct proportion to the quality of your blank. Now, there's a lot of words in there. I'll give you a hint on them here for the last word. Okay, your accountability, loyalty, and I realize I've got one more line in there than I should have. Your loyalty. Yes, this pen does not have spell check. And your profitability is in direct proportion to the quality of your what? I'll give you a clue. It starts with T and ends with raining. So in other words, I want you to think about that again, and I would love you to write this down. Your team's accountability, loyalty, and profitability is in direct proportion to the quality of your training, which brings me to this. Now, I promise you, I'm going to want you to take you through this so we understand what creates this loyalty, what creates a transformational experience for the student, for the associate, for the new hire, for your senior people. Is if you have this in mind, then I promise you, you will create an unbelievable experience. So let me tell you what most people do in their trainings. Now, I call this the training iceberg. And if you think about it, just like in the water, you know, what you see is that 10% that's above the line. And inside there, that what most people will do is they will have what I call a tangible style of training, which means here's what you need to do. I want you to do this. You got to buy a mannequin. You got to be in here at a certain time. We're going to train after hours. We're going to have every week 7 to 9 p.m. after. I want you to come in. And now all they think about, if you want to type that in, what do you think that the only thing that they're thinking about at that given time? What do you think that there is the only thing that they are thinking about? Well, here's what it is. They're thinking about what is the time? What is the dollars that I have to spend if it's going to be there? What am I missing out on? That FOMO. What am I missing out on if I have to be there when I'm not being either paid or whether I'm doing this for free after hours when I could about even having a beer with my mates? Okay. If this is making sense so far, I want you to type in making sense. So, and I would love to see you guys on there. Give me a little bit more. I'm just looking down there. Lots more of you got joined in. I want to thank you guys for being a part of it. So that's the tangible part. Now, what that means is if your trainings that you're doing are just tangible, meaning this is like what I see, what I feel, but I'm not necessarily feeling that I'm getting anything out of it, then it's just time wasted, money wasted. Now, what we want to do from there is we want to take that and we want to move it down another level, like just like in that iceberg, what's below that next level? And that next level is what we call the intangible. In other words, it's not the things that we can see and we can do. It's about what do we make people feel like? You know, what's the experience that I'm having in this training? How much confidence how is my confidence being raised? You see, that's what makes for a very positive environment where people are not critiqued, but they're actually getting what they want out of it. And while we're pushing them on something, I'm not saying that we're just holding their hand, singing kumbaya, but we're not giving them tough love, but we're giving them support. I know you can do this, etc. That's what helps the trainings to become intangible. Now, here's what we want. I want to move from there. We're going to move down another level. Now, this one is critical. This part is where what are we doing to make it transformational? I guess, let me just, told you this pen didn't have spell check. What are we doing to make it transformational? Guys, and I just type that in, try transform, because that's what we really want to do. We're taking these kids and we're helping to transform them as a hairdresser, transform them as a human being, because they want to know inside there. Here's what the first thing that they're going to want to know is if we can show them what they're going to become. In other words, we're going to help to train you right now. We're going to take you from this level where you're just joining, and a very short period of time, we're going to have you on the floor. In another very short time, we're going to have you booked. And shortly after that, we're going to have you earning 6 figures a year. Now, that doesn't mean everybody's going to do it. I want to be very candid with you on this, but it means if you can provide an environment, where they're actually going to have hope because they believe in the vision that you have for the salon and for them, they also know that they're going to be a part of a community. Guys, community. Now, listen to me on this one, because if you've ever been a part of a group where you fit in, you knew that everybody had each other's back, great team environment. Somebody can offer you another job, or even somebody entice you, try to get away, but you don't want to leave that community. Okay. Now here's the other part, and I'm going to change on this one because this area in here, when you can transform someone, transform them where they can see they're actually getting better and going to become better at what they do, what they have, and what they can become. This is where loyalty is created. So we want to take our trainings that we have, and we want to change them from a tangible to intangible to transformational kind of experiences that are very positive. Now, next part I want to take you to in here is right in this. Now, this area that we're talking about right now is this is what I would call this is a genius model. This is from a mentor teacher of mine out of Australia that helped us develop genius model. Just means what's the genius you have in your training that is going to help them get better at what they do. And I call this, whether you call it a team training genius model, or whether you call it a team training, or whether you call it an accountability training, is you guys type in right now, if you feel that everybody is being held accountable in what they do, yourself included, that if we tend to let people off the hook, that's one of the main reasons why people leave. They might, pardon my language, but I'm going to say if people are pissing and moaning about rules, but the reality is they want to be held accountable in what they do, as long as it's done in the right situation. So I want you to think about this for right now. Right now, there's 4 areas. Just type in a 4 in that chat bar. And the 4 areas that we're going to go into here right now is I'm going to go into the 4 main areas of your training. So this area and everything that's on this side that I'm typing into that's on the outside of that box is what we call the tangible. So there's tangible things that you have to do. So don't get me wrong in this when I say if it's only about tangible, you have to have all 3 of those areas. But these are the areas we have to help them with. And I'm going to quickly write these down. Survey, the path. In other words, what's the path that each one has as an individual? How are we going to help them evolve? And what is the culture like that we have within our organization? So all of these parts that we have in here, everything that is outside of this area right here, everything that's outside of this is called the tangible. What we do is we have what we call on the inside of this, everything on these circles that we have in here, this is the intangible. And then the sweet spot that we have in the center of that is our accountability. And I will tell you this, I'll guarantee you this, is if you have all of the others in place, nobody has a problem with accountability because nobody's holding back. Okay. Now, so let me take you into this first section that we have in here. This first section is called survey. Just type in survey, because I'm sure that you're wondering, what does this mean? Okay. And what that means is this. Inside the survey and in this genius model, there's 3 areas that you have to think about. Survey is nothing more than evaluations. What's the evaluations that you're doing on your new hires as people are coming on board? What is the assessments that you're doing before they can move to another level, or before you're taking them from becoming an associate to moving them onto the floor? All of those things. So now there's 3 main areas that you have to get to inside here. And number 1 is what are the goals? What are the goals and what are the values that they have? And I really believe that if we're setting these up with people, now people saying, yes, I'm doing goal setting. Now, what do you mean by values? Well, excuse me, if you think about that, any place that you're working with, if your values and what you believe in align, then you work together on a very even keel. Let me give you an example. Let's say, for instance, that the goal that I have is that I believe, and I'm working for person X, and my values are honesty and integrity. And yet, when I watch the person that I'm working with, and if I see that they're not doing things that are honest, or maybe they're doing things that are not integral, they don't seem to align, my values don't align with that person, and I want to disconnect myself with them. Even if I'm making money, I will eventually work apart. So the big thing that we talk about in our associate program is to make sure that make sure that your goals and your values align. If you know what your values are, what your goals are for your company, and then you get the people in their interview process to say, what are the values that you have? You know, is it imagination, creativity? Is it about honesty, integrity? Is it family? How much family is it? Is that one of your core values? The more we understand that, the more that we'll be able to help to move the whole machine closer together. You know, the other part in there is personality. Now, I've taken a ton of these myself. If you just type in, if you have had an environment where you had to take a personality test, like Caliper is one, the Myers-Briggs. I know that when I started with a company, I had to take this Myers-Briggs test, and it was really quite interesting when I found out when I answered the questions, what distance this was or where I was in this. And then there's also the DISC one, which is, I think it stands for dominance, influence, steadiness, and compliance. So you figure out where you are inside there. You can start to get all of those things, and you see how your team starts to fit together personality-wise. Now, if you can think, when you're taking a survey, if you can think of, what do you think that next step is? What do you think that fill in the blank one is right in there? And it's probably, I'm going to give you a hint, it starts with an S, and it's probably something that's the only thing that we do. Is all we're assessing people on is and if you said skills, training, their disciplines, it's all the same. But just remember, what I would always want to know before I starting, and what I love that we can doing, and I'm going to show you at the end, I've got one of the special treats for you is what we call a new hire, or just a startup evaluation. And what that is just where you can bring somebody in, and if you can imagine, have an evaluation sheet where you just have everything listed that you're going to look for. You're going to evaluate them. In other words, you get them to come in, do the work, you evaluate them, and see this where this is. Now, twofold. Here's one thing that everybody, it reeks of this word. We call it an evaluation. We call it assessment. But when I talk to people about the first thing, and type in what it sounds like to you, and if the first word starts with T and ends with est, yeah, very good. Yeah, so like it's a test. Most people think that this is test. That's not necessarily what this is about. You are testing them. So listen, let's be very candid about this. But what we're doing with this in here is we're making sure that we find out that the area, now listen real closely on this, and I want you to type in or to write down minimum standard, minimum salon standard. What's your minimum standard and how do they measure up to that in your hiring process? Now, does that mean that you're going to say, well, no, you don't fit. Yeah, you need to go away. I'm not going to hire you. No, what it means is you now know what you have to train them on and where you can let them do things immediately. Because if you look at the generation that we have now, they do not want to be out on the floor for 6-8 months doing making minimum wage and doing and not contributing and not getting any clients in, etc. The whole idea behind this is how can you get somebody on the floor contributing financially within 2 weeks so that they're actually earning their wages and not costing you anything? Well, you might say that, Chris, how do they do that? Well, in 2 weeks. Well, here's the reality, and this is nothing rocket science. You know you're doing it already. Well, you know that you bring people in, they're doing a shampoo, they're doing a color application, they're going to do a blow dry. But what happens when they're not trained on what minimum salon standard is because we didn't check, and now the client is upset? So you always want to be making sure we're measuring everybody, training everybody as quickly as possible to get them up to that minimum salon standard. Now, once we have that, that's when you can immediately put them on the floor. They're doing services for other stylists who have higher ticket income. Now their income, their rate goes up, etc. Okay. This is why we call about survey, the evaluations, why evaluations are so critical in what we do. Okay, now again, I've got the surprise for you in here, but I want to say here's something that of those people that we have had so far, those 50 people, Holly Fox out of the Metropolitan Salon, she wrote this: Salon Associate Accelerator has made it exponentially faster to get associates working on the floor. Within 2 weeks, they are supporting stylists, so the stylists have more time for upsells and more booking. Okay, now this is just what few of the people or some of the people are saying about the program we have right now. Now, if right now, and I'm not sure, I don't know on the end. We've got, I see Becky is on there, Becky Dobbs. I'm noticing from our team has said that it might be our chat bar is not working on there. So I don't know if there's a hand that can get raised on this right now. Marjorie, you'll have to maybe jump on and help me with this. I've got right now, if there's anybody has any questions on that survey, if not, that I'll move on. I've got 3 more segments to go. Yes, hand raise works. Okay, thank you, Marjorie. So listen, if somebody has a question, no, listen, I'm going to talk about more about other things, other areas, but I really want to go back to here. If you have anything to do with goals, the personality trainings or skills, if you have any questions on that, just hit your hand raise, and that's down on the bottom of your screen. You'll see it has a little hand that looks like this. You just have to click on that. It'll raise your hand, and Marjorie will patch you in so you can actually talk. Okay. Marjorie, if you see any hands come up, then great. If not,
for sure.
There is?
Becky was the first one up, and I'm going to allow her to talk.
Okay, good.
Becky, go ahead. Your microphone is muted, but if you wanted to ask a question, go ahead.
Oh, I was still trying to just get to where I could chat because I couldn't chat.
Yeah, well, apparently it must sound just to everybody listening. I know I've been talking away, encouraging it, but I see that I wasn't thinking everybody's rude, so I'm assuming that it was something on this. The chat is not working, so I guess that would just have to be from there. So, is there a Becky? First of all, hi. I love you,
Hi.
girl. I know we spent a lot of time together, so I just want to make sure. Is there a question that you have on that first part?
No, but I think that it put a lot together as far as doing that survey before you even hire them.
Yeah, and you know, Becky, that's the critical part here is not, again, not to. It's not. I mean, unless people are just a train wreck, but it's where are they, so you know what you have to train on before you get them. And somebody might be super green, but with the best attitude in the world. But now you can just help them be better at what they do and help to get them into transformation, where you're transforming them all the time by making them better in every week on every skill that they do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, Margie, was there anybody else that had their hand raised?
Yes, I have Pamela and Misty. I'll go next down here. Pamela.
Okay, I'm going to take those two, and then anybody else, just so I can get through the rest of the information. I'll take those two, and then anybody I want to take your questions, I will, even if I have to stay on longer than the hour after, I will.
Pamela, you are next, and
Pam.
if you just unmute yourself, you'll be good to talk. Go.
Am I unmuted?
Hi,
Yes.
how you doing, Pam?
Yeah. I actually requested your evaluation in the past, and I have a copy of that
Awesome.
and I actually took it into the school because I teach at cosmetology school 2 days a week.
Good for you.
And I have a hair salon that's about to open for the students that have graduated. So
Beautiful.
I took it in there and I've been playing with it. So I really appreciate you for everything that you're doing.
Oh, thank you, girl. I really appreciate you, Pam. And thank you for that. And I always say, God, listen, everything that we have in here, you know, if I've got stuff and people want to help to distribute that, that's fine, because it's all, you know, I always think what's the best way that we can help our industry along. So Pam, thank you so much for that. Okay. And then Marjorie, was there somebody else?
Yes, we have Misty. Misty, I'm going to allow you to
Misty,
talk.
play Misty for me.
Okay. Hello.
Misty.
Hey, Misty.
Hello.
How are ya?
How you doing,
Yeah,
girl?
I was super frustrated because you were saying just type in the chat box. I'm like, I can't type in the chat box.
Yeah. Well,
I,
hey, Misty, just imagine from my end where I'm going, type in the chat box, and I'm going, well, everybody hates me.
No, but on to what you were saying. I think it's super good. And I think the whole survey situation, I have a new associate that just came on, so I'm definitely going to be trying to use that and share that with her educator. And
Beautiful.
yeah, thank you very much. So I'll let
Yeah,
you continue,
thank you.
because I know you're on a time restraint.
No, thank you, Misty. And okay, but thank you. I'm going to move on right now. But Misty, I'm glad to hear. Because I'm going to go into that in just a bit. I'm glad you say that you have a trainer that's doing it, because it's really critical. I'm going to deal with more with that just in a short bit. Thank you, everybody. And again, now remember, if you got a question, I'm going to go with each one of these segments, and we're going to take a couple of questions at the end, if not at the end of each segment, and then I'll take more at the end. Okay. So now, the next area that we have that we're going to go to into here is what I call the path. Now, this path is simple. Is like, what's the path if myself and Marjorie come to work for you, and we both have a different gradient? Maybe Marjorie's skill set's higher than I am in one area. Mine's higher in another area. I might be more shy and reserved, whereas Marjorie might be outgoing, and you have no problem with them upselling, etc. What's the individual paths that we have, not one blanket one? So I would say to this, first and foremost, even if the worst case scenario, just get yourself just a calendar, a yearly calendar, not a yearly calendar that you're going to put in week by week, but put in your calendar at least for the first quarter, and get your calendar. When is your training? What's the date? What's the time? What's the timing that you have? I'm going to say a few things here that might be a bit controversial. I believe that, and what I see in the systems that people have, if you have youth and they have to do it off times on their own for free, they're not going to buy in. But if they're not busy and you have a training system that's set with them where you can still be working at your chair, earning money, and you have a training system that's in place that can be where they go and work off on their own when they're not busy and not supporting somebody else, they can train and learn, and you're still creating in revenue from everybody else. So and I'm just going to do just an unadulterated plug in here for the Salon Associate Accelerator that we have, which helps to get them into the training and doing upsells within 2 weeks or 2 weeks. And I would say with your trainings is think of it as DIFY, DIWIY, and YDI. In other words, do it for you. Do you have a system in place that does it for you? In other words, like with our system, you can take our system that we have and you can just have that in your salon. Everybody does their work and it's just you supervise it. And now you can do it with you. In other words, like Misty was on there, already has a trainer, and that trainer might want to be a part of that training where she has a discipline that she does, design, color, finish, whatever. And she takes on that part of the training. Like let's say she's not as good, and this is, I'm just making stuff up. She's not as good at design, but she's really good at finishing, and she's really good at color. Then what program do you have? What system do you have in place that could work with you to teach the training while Becky is teaching the color? Or you do it. In other words, what that is, you take the training and you teach using the training. So in other words, everything's set out for you. All your lesson plans are set up for you. All you have to do is say, okay, here's what I'm going to do. 10 minutes before the class, you punch in, you look at the educator version of what you have to do. It trains, and then you jump in with, here's what they have to do. Still easy. And then so you have a calendar, you have a system that's in place. And then as well, here's the biggest and the most key thing to all of this is consistency. If you do a training 1 week and then they're off for 2 weeks and they do another training and then they didn't get the right thing, the right person, then the system just doesn't work. They're not seeing it regularly. So I would suggest what we always say is pick a regular time. Pick a regular time, pay them for it, and pay your trainer for it. Ooh, pay. Chris really stepped on a landmine there, didn't he? But think about that for a second. When I've talked to trainers that right there, and I know that Becky will support me on this one, because some of the events that I've spoken to, this is one big key area, is you can get, if people aren't paid appropriately as your trainer, they'll get burnout and they just don't want to do it anymore. And that's why I think that having a system where it supports or does it for you, where they're in as a it's new teeth, supervisor role. Okay. And if you can have that on board, then I think that they want to do it. So in other words, pay them, pay the trainer. And if you're paying them an hourly wage or whatever, they're supporting, make sure that you're doing it through class hours. Okay. Now, guys, just because I see the amount of content and the time here, I'm going to go through this content, write down your questions, and I promise you I will stay on time so that you do it onto there. Okay. Everybody good? I know that in this imaginary, you just type in good into your chat bar, because that means psychically you're going to be sending it to me and I know you're playing along. Okay, good. Now, I want to type this in for you here. And I want you to just type it in into yourself. I'm going to fill it in for you in here. I'll start with that, and I'll give you this. Okay, now, is this correct or incorrect? Now, I know that you can't psychically send me a message, and I know you'll get, I'm getting it. It's coming in closer now. Yes, you got it right. Shouldn't do the trainings. Listen, your job is the visionary. Your job is to provide jobs. Your job is to create jobs. Your job is to make sure that your business is rising to where it needs to go. Your job is to make sure that you oversee the vision of all the people where they need to go and where you can help them get to where that is. And that takes time, energy, and money. And you want to have time for your family at the end of the day. So that's why when we always suggest, just like Misty was talking about, get 1 or 2. If you have somebody that's great at design, get them to take over the design training. You got a great colorist, get them to take over the color business, the color side of it. If you have somebody that's great at retail, product knowledge, selling, whatever that might be, get them as a part of the trainings as well. And so you can help to trade off on a lot of this, okay? But the reality is the owner shouldn't do the training. And just because our name is on the shingle outside of the salon, it doesn't mean that, you know, Chris's beauty box, so therefore Chris does the training and Chris has the halo around because I'm the golden child. No, Nanette. Here's what we should be doing is making sure that we have other people that are growing up. I'm going to talk a little bit more in a segment. If you guys are interested, is how the heck do I exit out of this business and make money? Just wait on a couple, just in a little bit down the road. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But you do that by grooming your people so that you can help them grow. And I'm going to talk a bit more about that in a second. But now remember, if you're doing the trainings now, you're going to go, oh, Chris doesn't like me. I'm doing things wrong. Listen, and sometimes if you're just starting out, you may have to do the training as the owner at the very beginning, but you're looking as fast as you can. How quickly can I get a trainer that's built in so where they're doing the training, or better, trainers, just in case somebody is sick. Okay. Now I'm going to just pass by that Q&A, hold those to the end. So if you have questions, just hold those in, just because of that darn chat bar doesn't seem to be working. But I want you to right now, I'm going to take you into the evolve part of this. Now, what does evolve mean? Well, think about that is just from the way that we've evolved along our path, the way you got to be an owner or a leader or whatever kind of position that you're in right now. There's three main areas that you have to think about as how do you get your team to evolve, okay? Now, the second part about this part is the first thing I'd love to share with you in here is this, is what kind of roadmap do you have that's put into place so you can help to see how them grow? Now, unfortunately, we have a roadmap that is meant for the six-figure stylist. Now, Becky, I know you can support me on this because when we launched it at the destination training a few months ago, I know you were there, and it shows you how to get from somebody just starting off at the beginning, and what do you have to do in some of the key areas, like how do you get them up to six figures filling their book? How do you get them so they're retaining their clients? How do you get them so their skill set is at a mastery level? How do you get them so their personal growth is growing? And not only that, but they're growing themselves financially, et cetera. Now that might scare some people thinking, well, as soon as they're set financially, they're either going to leave, go move on their own or whatever. But I say, if you have community, that's where the people come into it. And I'm actually going to jump ahead on one here right now because it seems to be coming up, is succession. What is your succession planning that you have in place? Rather than waiting till you will say, listen, I'm going to hang up the scissors, the color brush. What do I need to do? And I want somebody to buy it. And generally, if we know that at that time it's too late, you're getting far less value than what you can have. But what are you doing to bring on shareholders into your business? Just so, like you saw in the testimonial that came up, when you saw that, it said shareholder and owner. Now, what are you doing to make sure that you're building up people so that you can get them into a leadership scenario so that you have a leadership team in place and you can succeed, have a succession of they buy in shares into your business. Now you have their how would I say? I want to say this in the best possible way, like the golden handcuff. They're already owners. You have different leadership teams, right from front desk to trainings to business side, et cetera. What are you doing to make sure that those people are going? Because I will tell you, I heard this great quote the other day. I'm not smart enough to think of this on my own, but I heard this great story about the CEO that came in, and they had one of their trainers, one of their education team came and said to the CEO, he said, well, because they said, we need to train all these people. And they said to him, well, what would happen if you train them and they leave? And the other person said, well, what would you happen if you don't and they stay? So the point is if you're training people, and we talked about the very beginning, asking yourself those leadership questions, is your leadership high enough that they can actually have a place to grow up and grow into versus just dying on the vine? Because if they die on the vine and there's no place for them to go, that's when they open their own business. That's when they go on their own. Okay. So that's where we are within this team that we have right in now. Okay, got them. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to add, just to hold off on the questions. I've got about 5 in this next section. I'm going to take you to this last piece, and then I'm going to open it up to the questions that are in there right now. Okay. So, okay, first of all, let's just talk about, if you've heard of this before, some of you may have, some of you may have not, but in order to have a culture, because we always talk about in our salon, we have a culture. Good culture, bad culture, indifferent culture, whatever that is. But in the research that we've done on this is that there's 3 key areas, just even for anything else, just type in the chat bar 3, just to help you to remember, because that's one thing those actions will do, is there's 3 key things, 3 rules that you have to have in order to have an efficient and an effective culture within your organization. And that is, you have to have rules, because we know without rules, there's chaos. And you've got to have inside here is you want to have say a code of honor, and that's a code of honor that everybody puts together. You have the rules. Code of honor is nothing more than a set of rules, 8 to 10 rules that you do not break, and you can be called on them. In other words, like being on time, or the fact that you don't leave a teammate behind, or which mean that, you know, if somebody's busy and you're sitting there, rather than warming sitting on the dryer and warming our tuchus on the dryer, just to go out and reading a magazine, going out and helping people. Those are just part of the codes of honors that we have. And that all amounts to is we're going to talk a little bit more about it in a second, is accountability. Okay. So that's the first rule. The second rule that you have is everybody has to speak the same language. That's like, if you were trained in one area, and if I was an electrician and I was raised on calling a volt, amps and watts, but I was trained in another area where we called them 3 different names, X, Y, and Z, and I'm trying to talk to my teammates about and we have different names. That's where you have to be able to speak to the same language with the same professional terms. And then the third part of that is that you have to have the same belief system, the same values. And that means that's where the owner makes sure that everybody has those, that exponentially moves you up faster, your business faster into a success situation. And what are we doing for their future as well, their beliefs and goals? Okay. Now, one last thing. So we talked about the rate. Now, if you look at, this is how right from there, if you look at the survey path, culture and evolve, everything that we talked about in this past few minutes, everything that's all the tangible things that we have to do, things that they must partake with, things that we give to them. Okay, now inside that box is the intangible. So that inside there, if you think about that, the survey that you have, that will give you'll be able to assess your team as they're moving forward, as you hire them and as they move forward to it. Inside the program that we also have, besides the new hire, we also have, if you're moving up in all of your categories, what are assessments that you have to pass in order to move forward and get up to the next step. So that's what you get out of survey. That's the intangible, is you get the assessment. They are being assessed. They know how to move forward. With the path, it makes them aware of exactly what they have to do. It makes them aware of the steps that they have to do. For evolve, that gives, now again, the award that they get, you know, how do they help to move forward? What's the things that they're gaining, the award that they get financially, personal development wise, you know, in other words, mentally, spiritually, and I mean spiritually by the energy that happens within the organization, the worth that they get out of being there, and by culture. Then we're talking about now, how do we advance within the organization? So those are the intangible. And again, type that in, intangible. The other ones were tangible. This one is intangible. Now the sweet spot that we talk about in that inside, this area inside here, that's where accountability lies. That's where accountability lies. Now that means accountability for them, because if we've got this laid out, you have a system in place. Let's say it is that whether it's your own or something that you have, or our Salon Associate Accelerator, if that's in place, it gives them everything that they need to do and the reports that you get to see how they're doing, and it gets them a report to see how they're doing, what they're passing at, what they need to improve upon. Okay. Now, those are the things that make it accountable for them, but it also makes you accountable. You know, rather than sitting back when we have to worry about in the evenings, now I don't have to worry about what am I doing in the evening to make sure that I've got all this done. My accountability level is done because it's all done for me and it's set up in advance. Okay. If everybody's good so far, type in good. I'm just treating it at the same way that you have all along there. Now this is where I have a gift for you. And if you guys like gifts, say I love gifts. Okay. Because here's what I want to do for you. Right now, with our Salon Associates Accelerator, we're in beta, but we will only be in beta for probably another few weeks. And then we're going to be going on to our launch. So let me tell you what's involved and the gift that I have for you, because I have several gifts that I want to give to you in here. Number one is the price that we have right now. It is $99 a month right now for the training program. So if you think of the time and the energy and the money that people have to put in for 1 month's worth of training, you know, that is like several Starbucks coffees that you're having in here. It right now gives you 10 seats. What that means, 10 seats, is if you have, as you're hiring associates, you can have 10 spots that you have in there for associates. It also gives you one educator version, which is the same version of what the people get, but how to teach what they need to learn. And inside there is all the assessments, the evaluations, etc. Upon launch, which is going to be a few weeks away, the beta pricing will go away. And we're not exactly sure what it is going to be right now, but we can guarantee you it is going to double, minimum of double. It will give you 3 seats and they'll get one educator version inside that. So inside there is what I want to give to you. This is my gift. Everybody type in gift. And I want you to write this down right now, is in the gift that I have. I want you to type this in. And Marjorie, if you want to type this in right now, what the coupon code is, and it is CB, as in Chris Barron, CB gift. If you write that down and you go to our site, Marjorie will bring up what the site is here in just a short minute. She'll give you access to where to go. If you want to jump on there, this is my gift to you, will be a 30-day access to use this free. Full access, no limits. It has all the evaluations, all the stylist assessments in there. If you're interested and you want that initial evaluation, it's on, just write this down. It's on page 2 of the educator version. So if you see in there, if you just go into trainersplaybook.com, and this value will only be good until the 28th. Okay. Now I want to, just before I take a few questions on there, I would highly suggest, if you guys just, if anything else, use it for 30 days, see how you like it, okay? If you see inside here, I want to give you a little idea of what some of the people were talking about, the new hire. There's 2 areas to this. I'm not going to go deep into it, but if you look at it, it shows you inside there, what do they need to do for setup? What do they need to do for a client-centric focus? What is the haircut that they need to do? And how do they grade themselves on their blow dry, their flat iron? And did they recommend any retail? The educator version has all of the inside stuff that tells you what are the notes that you have. Oh, I just got to get a little glitch that I have in here. There. Okay. Inside here, what is all the notes that you have to do. In other words, for their setup, what should you be looking for? How do you grade them? You take off 1 point for each. How do you grade them? And then it gives you a score at the end of it. What is your scoring that you have that you can score? And we always say an 80% average that you have to have in order to have minimum salon standard. So those are all, you don't have to copy them. They're all in gifts in there. All you have to do is that site and to go to there. Okay. So here's where what I'd like, we've got a few minutes left, and I promised you I will, as long as you have questions, I'll stay on a few minutes more. But Marjorie, if you want to go to just a Q&A that we have, anybody has any questions on anything, I would gladly help you on this. And by the way, that will be that coupon code with CB gift will only be good until the 28th of this month. So that's good for 2 weeks. I'd highly suggest take advantage of that immediately so you don't so it doesn't fall in the path and then you wake up on the 1st and that gift is gone. Okay, Marjorie.
Right. Yes, perfect. Yes, if you have any question, just hit raise hand. Also just wanted to say one more time, because people might have not jotted it down, but the website is trainersplaybook.com and the course is Salon Associates Accelerator. So just jot those down. We have Cindy who has her hand raised, so
Nice.
I will just allow her to speak.
Hey,
Okay,
Cindy.
Cindy.
Hey, Cindy.
Hello. So I was at your last webinar that you did with, I believe, Carolyn O'Connor.
Oh, yeah.
And I also am in your Facebook group for that. And it's been so inspirational for me. But I actually have been having girls from school coming in, and I use that sheet and some of the stuff that you taught. So I did use the trainer's playbook for a long time, but I think now I'm changed. So I'm excited to do it. And I do have a staff, but none of them want to train, but they'll do certain parts. So
Yeah.
I came to the conclusion that I could do, the stuff they don't want to do, but when it comes to like color or this or that, then I pay them to do it.
Yeah, Cindy, let me ask you a quick question. Why do you think they don't want to do it? Give me a couple of reasons. Why do you think?
I think they're complacent.
Okay, good.
I think some of them now, they're making a paycheck.
Yep.
I do have one girl that would be really good at it, but I think that she's terrified to be responsible for
Bingo.
somebody's education.
Bingo, right there.
Yes.
Well, and I'm gonna say two things. Bingo, if somebody else doesn't have the patience, but also terrified because I haven't trained before.
Correct.
I'll tell you
And
that
the funny thing is with her is she was my very first associate. She's been with me forever. I'm like, you know how to do this. I did it with you.
Well, the reality, see, Cindy, here's the thing, is she knows how to do what she does. She doesn't know how to train.
Right.
I'll tell you, when I started off, when I was good behind the chair, I qualified myself as a quasi expert. And if you're just listening in, I'm using air quotes. I can't believe that. However, I would have nervous poops before I had to do anything, if you know what I'm talking about, because it was outside of my realm. But now imagine if you have the educator version where you have to say to her, what's her name, by the way?
Ashley.
Ashley. You could say to Ashley, look you don't have to come up with the training. The associate training has an educator level, and all you have to do, Ashley, is stay one lesson ahead of everybody of the associate.
Correct. So let me ask you this. So you said at least once a week, or should we do it more than once a week? Because I just hired someone from beauty school, and then I have another one that just came in that really wants to work for us.
Okay, here's what, I talked about the trainings being once a week, and I was talking about trainings as an overall. Here's what I would tell you. Cindy, do you want go-getter people?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to get them on the floor as fast as possible?
Yes, I have one of them that hasn't even been on the floor for a year, and she is already breaking commission.
Yep. Let me ask you this, because I've got a line of questions I want to take you through in this.
Okay.
See, if you have a go-getter, and I'm assuming these are young kids, yes or no?
The one that I just spoke of, yes. The
Yeah.
other one, she's younger than me.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So she's in her 20s.
No,
Because I know
she's
you're only
in her
25.
30s.
Well, here, I'm going to just read something from you. This is, I don't know if you guys know who Kaz Sakis is. He's a global creative director for Tony and Guy, and he's a current British hairdresser of the year out of the UK. And here's what, we had an open letter. This was an open letter that they had written inside of the Hairdresser's Journal, great magazine for looking at hair, etc. And he wrote this inside there. I just took one excerpt. He said, we can't have an apprentice, what we call associates, working hard on low money, taking 3 to 4 years to qualify, especially when their friends in other industries are qualifying quicker and earning more money. They don't look at that long term. It's the short term that counts. So we have to make sure it's attractive as possible. So what would make it really attractive for any new hire that you have going on, Cindy?
Well, I think what makes it attractive for them is I tell them I want them on the floor well before 6 months.
Yeah. Okay, good. What if they could be on the floor in 3 months?
Perfect.
What if they could be on the floor in 2 months?
Perfect.
Are they going to have to work harder to get on the floor in 2 months versus 6?
I mean, they're going to have to work smarter. They're going to have to want it.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I see. I said something wrong here. That it is. I'm talking about insofar as training to get your skill level up to minimum
Absolutely.
salon standard. And if you said to me, if I'm a go-getter, and you said to me, Chris, you handsome devil. Okay. Well, so you say,
You are
Chris.
handsome.
Oh, God bless you. I was fishing for that one. But let's say I was a go-getter, and you said, Chris, do you want to get on the floor in 2 months? I say yes. Well, I'd say, let's set up a training program with the amount of work and training that you have to do to get it up into 2 months. You see it?
Yes.
Now, so I'm going to go back to your original question. Should I do it in 1 week, or should I do it every second week? Or what do you think that you should do for them?
Well, I know at least minimum every week.
Why, Lear, let me ask you this now, because I can tell that you were raised in training the same era that I was trained in raising is that we had weekly trainings, right? What if this, I'm just going to call this person Ashley, because that's the name you referred to before.
Right.
Let's say you got new Ashley is coming in, and Ashley is a go-getter. And you could say, Ashley, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to set aside 60 to 90 minutes or 2 hours every day. You'll be getting paid for those, and you're going to be listed with an assignment, and you're going to do that. We're going to supervise what you're doing after you've done it. You just have to watch what you're supposed to do on the videos, copy what that is, and then have your work finished and present it to us, and we'll help coach you. You see,
I can do that.
Keeps you on the floor earning money. They get to come up to it faster. So what you would normally be working in, and what 5 weeks would be normally a month plus one week, they're learning in 1 week. Does this make sense?
I can do that. Yeah, no.
Yeah,
totally
you see it.
does.
So, but they might say, no, I don't want to do that. Well, then how many, and you say up the path, what would you feel comfortable with? Well, I'd work with having 3 of those a week. Okay, good. It's just going to take them a little longer. And instead of being on the floor in 2 months, you might be on the floor in 3. Does this make sense?
It does. And honestly, Chris, my philosophy is you need a little bit of everybody. You need the people that are there just for a paycheck. You need
Yes.
And so I have, because I've been in the industry for 39 years.
God bless you. You started when you were 7, right?
Yeah, no, I did it through high school. But yes, I was 7 when I went through high school. So anyways, I only work behind the chair 1 day a week now. So I started going and getting different education for myself.
Good.
To kind of spark me again.
Yep.
And so kind of everything we're talking about was the game plan I've been working on. Like, I can do this. I have to do it.
Yes.
If I want to get to the end game and I want to have shareholders and I want to, I'm going to have to put the work in.
Well, yeah, and you don't have to put as much work. Remember, if you've got shareholders, you've got other people around you, get them to do the work too. I'm not saying that you can sit back with bonbons on your chest and a remote control in your hand watching TV. What I am saying is that you don't have to do all the work. You can
and I just,
train
but
up.
I do until I don't.
Yeah, well, exactly. And that's exactly it. You know,
But
you
I
do until you
think-
don't. Once they're in place, so you might have to
Right.
put in a little bit more time now, but if you're only working 1 day a week, take some of that time that you have and then help that get involved in the training. So when you're going through the
Yes.
associate program, you know what all the pieces are in there. So when your trainer is eventually brought on, that you know it well enough to give them advice on each one of the lessons.
Right. Thank you so much. You know, you're amazing.
Oh,
You're
God
like,
bless. Thank
I
you.
had somebody ask me the other day, who is the one person that you love to listen to? And I said, you, because I think you're really humble.
Ah.
And I love that you share all of your information. And I want you to know from me, as I'm sure a lot of other people, thank you. I appreciate you.
Oh, Cindy, thank you. I learned, I was not always, I had a big head at one time, but I learned really quickly that if people have egos and they have all of that inside them, the first thing that happens, I've learned that if you hold everything in that, and you say they're my ideas, I won't give them away, I won't help other people, what happens is the universe abhors a vacuum. So if you
Yes.
give stuff away, that universe will give you another idea. The universe will give you another thought. And I think that's
the whole reason that I opened up a salon is I wanted young stylists to learn and
Good.
be able to make as much money as I have.
Yeah.
And have a safe place to work where there's no judgment.
Yeah.
You
Bingo.
get to be you.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to do another little, if you guys have not listened to, I put out a podcast every week on Thursday. And if you go to that, I just did one with Dom Lahane out of the UK just today. And he was talking about exactly what you're talking about, that our point in our industry where we're at right now is we have to be concerned about our industry, not necessarily just ourselves.
Yes.
So Cindy, I want to thank you so much. I mean, thank you for the, now my head has grown up a little bit bigger, but I want to say thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Margie, was there anybody else? I know we're at pretty much or over time here, but if anybody else wants to stay
last call, anybody can raise their hand. It seems like the raise hand is working on here.
on.
But so far, nobody else. I think
Okay.
that's it.
Well, listen, guys, I will tell you one more time. I know what our team has put into that training program, and I know the value it has there. And I really, when you guys take a part of this, is take advantage of what it is now as opposed to what the price is going to be going up to. You'll have all those gifts, like I say on there, and 30 days access to it. In the meantime, I just want to say thank you all. Good luck. God bless to all of you. And I hope and wish all the success in the world upon you.